Hello, welcome to He's Hop, but Something is Off with me, just Joey T. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, available on Spotify and also my YouTube channel, just Joey T, you may notice, or hopefully you'll notice, the lighting is a little bit different. That's because I finally got some softbox lights, and these are very specific photography studio types of lights. Feel free to Google it, softbox lighting. And I've been wanting softbox lights for videos that I have been doing for several years now because it gives this like soft diffuse light, and usually have one on either side of you. So I've got one on my left and one on my right, just off the camera right now. And you can also get fancier with that setup. You can get ones that are much bigger. These are 2 feet by 3 feet ish. Yeah, you can also get ones that are like centered and it's like high above the camera that's in front of you, and you get ones that come down below for that kind of like that lighting from below to like hide the shadows on your wrinkles and the face and everything. But I've always wanted just like a couple of modestly sized ones for the video that I do where I just sit down in front of the camera. Finally, I got them. And it's not because I bought them myself. I started a Amazon wish list, not because of these lights, it's because of something else that I'll dig into a little bit later on. And someone bought these lights for me. So, you know who you are. It was someone that is a fan of my alt on Twitter, my alt account. So thank you so much. I don't think they actually watched this podcast. Yeah, but it's like for fans to like buy me things is I've never had that before. A lot of other people, creators, they have Amazon wish lists and things like that. So it's something I've always seen, but to actually have a fan buy me something, it's very like, oh my God, thank you. Yeah, so I've wanted these lights forever, and hopefully I can't tell until I edit this video, but hopefully the lighting looks a little bit better and I look a little bit better on camera, and I'll be using these lights for other photo and video shoots that I have around the house as well. Anyways, today I thought I'd go through a few of the cruise-related questions and comments that have gathered up a little bit. I want to tackle those comments and questions from the YouTube comments about cruises every so often, and a few have popped up since the last cruise Q&A. So let's dig right into it. Some of these comments, some of these questions, either are fine. I love them both. If you have any questions or comments about gay cruises, feel free to leave them on the YouTube comment section for any of the podcast episodes on my YouTube channel, just Joey T. So the first one is from John B6011. When I board, I go straight for muster station, get out of the way, then take care of the cabin stuff. A lot of muster stations are on or one deck off of deck 5, which is the boarding deck for the Oasis class ships. So just swing by on the way into the ship, really is no issue whatsoever, and you save yourself from having to backtrack later on. So this is a comment, it wasn't a question, but I wanted to just elaborate on that a little bit. Part of what you need to do within the first few hours of boarding a cruise ship, and critically before the ship can set sail, is that every single passenger on board the cruise must do something called a safety briefing. Sometimes it's called a muster drill as well, but it's pretty much the same thing. Basically what it is you're supposed to either attend a lecture or watch a video or go through on a mobile app on your phone the basic safety information that all passengers need to know. Is this equivalent of when you get on an airplane and they play that safety video at the beginning of the flight before you actually take off, or you have the flight attendants, cabin crew demonstrate the basic safety information that you need to know, like how to use your seatbelt, where the exits are, in case of an emergency, what do you do? It's the exact same thing, but just the cruise ship equivalent. So it used to be that pre-pandemic, before COVID, they would basically gather everyone up at a particular location on the ship called your muster station. And this is basically the part of the ship where you gather or assemble if a particular alarm or there's an emergency on board, and the captain orders everyone to their muster station. So this is just an assembly location that you would go to. And there's all sorts of different assembly locations or muster stations across the ship for the different passengers that are on the cruise. So it used to be that before COVID, you would go there sometime before the ship set sail on the very first day, within the first few hours after you board. And that's where they would actually run a quick safety video, or they just have like a quick lecture, and they just teach you in person all the safety information you need to know. Nowadays, after COVID, some cruise lines have gone away from that gathering system where they gather everybody up. Royal Caribbean, for example, for most of their sailings, they've moved that safety briefing into their mobile app. So you would basically go through on the mobile app all the different pieces of information that you need to know from the safety briefing. It's kind of sort of interactive. If you don't have the mobile app, you can also go through the safety briefing on a lot of the sailings on the TV that's in your stateroom. So basically, they're just delivering that safety information in a digital way, instead of before where they just gather everybody out. They would play a video, or they would just have one of the crew members demonstrate and just teach you all the information that you need to know. But part of the muster drill or the safety briefing, even with the digital information using the mobile app or using the TV to actually do the briefing, the final part of that is you have to go to the muster station to demonstrate that you know where your muster station or your assembly location is. And these days, post-COVID, if the information is delivered via the mobile app or is on the TV, there's no actual assembly for the safety briefing. You will be instructed to actually go to your muster station, and there'll be one crew member there. And then they'll basically have you scan your cruise card or the key card that you get when you get to your room. So that is a way to verify, okay, you actually went to the muster station and you actually know where it is. And by you scanning the card, that's like the record of it. So that's what it is. Sometimes I talk and I'm not 100% sure if the words are coming out of my mouth and make 100% sense or is very, very clear. But I hope I explained that in a very clear-ish way. If not, then I'm sure I'll fix it in the edit. All right. The next question is from the Trombias. Is there a single time of day when people are not wearing costumes? I don't know if this is a rhetorical or sarcastic question, but I'll answer it as if it's serious, because I can actually see quite a lot of people asking this or wondering this, like actually wondering if this is true or not, and wondering if there are actually times where on the ship where people are not wearing costumes. People are usually only wearing outfits when there is a party on board somewhere. So on an Atlantis cruise, there is a nighttime party every single night. Usually the party starts at around 10 p.m.-ish, give or take. And it doesn't really, it'll peak probably around 11:30, 12. It actually fills up fairly quickly. So right at 10 o'clock or whenever the party starts, obviously it's empty because it literally had just opened. But I have times where I've volunteered to work the Atlantic cruises and I've been assigned for one of those nighttime parties. I get there a little early to do checks and all that kind of stuff. And usually I'll stay with the party from when it starts until about 15, 20 minutes into it, just to make sure that, you know, the party is starting properly from the technical sense and operational sense in terms of the lights, the sound, the space itself is okay, you know, all that kind of stuff. And because I'm there for like the first 15, 20 minutes, I get a sense of how quickly some of these parties actually gather people in from the start. And usually for most parties on most cruises, there are people that start showing up like 5 or 10 minutes into when the party is started. It's quite quick. Yeah, that's the only time. So you might see from around 10 p.m.-ish every night that even in the corridors or whatever, people might be dressing up in their costumes, and they'll just wear the costumes from their stateroom to the party. You just change your room. You don't change at the party. You can just walk to the party from your room in your outfits, and that's where you'll see people on the ship wearing outfits. So parties don't end until 3, 4, 5 p.m. Sometimes there's like an after party for the people that don't want to go home yet and don't want to go to sleep. So the late night, early morning hours is when you'll see outfits. And the other times you might see outfits is when there's a tea dance, which is an afternoon dance party. That does not happen every single day. It's maybe 3-ish days or roughly half of the days of the cruise that they will have a tea dance. And tea dances usually are, they start at 3 or 4 p.m. and they go until 7-ish, give or take. So it's for 3 or 4 hours. And that's another time where we see people wearing costumes. But if there's not a party about to happen or is happening or has just ended, you don't usually see people wearing outfits. People are just wearing very casual attire, tank tops, sleeveless tees, t-shirts, shorts, flip-flops. That's what most people are wearing most of the time if they're just hanging out with friends, going to the casino, going to dinner, doing some sort of activity that's like not the party. So there you go. Next question is from Pablo Lopez 5357. Thank you so much for this video. I find it very helpful. By chance, do you know if there is a way to book this through points like Chance Points or AA Advantage? So I don't know every single program out there. However, I'm pretty sure that to book an Atlantis cruise, you can't directly use your frequent flyer points with airlines or frequent traveler points with hotels to book them. I think the only way to book an Atlantis cruise and to use miles or points in some way, shape, or form is if you have a credit card that lets you use your credit card points to offset a purchase. So basically, this means using your credit card miles or points to pay for a purchase you put on that credit card. Okay. To give you an example, in the U.S. is a U.S. specific example, unfortunately, but there might be ones, other credit cards in other countries that do the same thing. Capital One has a credit card called the Venture X, which is one of their premium travel credit cards, and you earn points by, making purchases. You earn points with the credit card, and you're allowed to use those points at a fixed rate to cover travel expenses. Okay, and an Atlantis purchase, if you book an Atlantis cruise with your credit card, it should be categorized as a travel expense by most credit card processors. It does for me anyways. So with this Capital One credit card, for example, I could use that to book a Atlantis cruise. On the billing statement, it's going to show up as a travel expense. And with the Venture X card in particular, I can use my Venture miles or points to be reimbursed or to pay for the cost of travel expenses at a predetermined fixed rate. I think it's something like 2 cents a mile or 1 cent a mile or something like that. Don't remember the exact conversion rate. And I think they have a couple of different venture cards. Maybe the rates are a little bit different. But yeah, so that would be one way to redeem miles and points for an Atlantis cruise. But if you have airline miles or hotel points, it's in one of those types of systems. Pretty sure you're not going to be able to use them to pay for an Atlantis cruise. And the reason for that is even though if one of these programs has a partnership with Royal Caribbean or, Celebrity Cruises or one of the cruise lines, the Atlantis cruises, they are chartered cruises. And usually those are booked and purchased a different way. In the Atlantis, for the Atlantis cruises, for example, it's not Royal Caribbean that does the bookings. It's Atlantis that does the bookings. So that's how they charter those ships. All right. The final comment that I have here is from Bishop Irihi. Sorry, I'm totally butchering your username. Wish I can try this even once. They're referring to one of my gay cruise videos, and they're watching that. They left a comment. But the amount, other than a cruise itself, from someone who is in the Southeast Asia region is a lot. We need flights and lodging and also visas, makes the cost double or more. And this is very true. So Atlantis, at least, is a US-based company. So a good number of the cruises that they run are in the US. However, I did mention before they do 2, if not 3, cruises in the Mediterranean every year, just because there's a lot of demand in Europe generally for cruises. Here in the US, they reliably run at least 3 cruises every year. So there's usually 2 Caribbean cruises in the US in the beginning of the year. And there's also the California, Mexico cruise that happens at the end of October. So Atlantis usually reliably runs 3 US-based cruises as well. And they have ran cruises in Asia, but those are not cruises that happen every single year. And they don't run the same Asia cruise every single year either on the years that they do have them. This year, they did a cruise between New Zealand and Australia for 5 days. And they haven't done a cruise in that region for like a very long time. It was effectively like a one-time thing that they did in March of this year. And last year, they did a cruise around, I can't remember all the ports, but I think it was between Bangkok and Singapore, that region. But again, that is not something that they do all the time. Once in a great while, they do a cruise in that region of Asia, but it's not every year, so it's not reliable. It's not consistent. So I think if there was more demand for Asian cruises, I think Atlantis would be interested in running more of them. But yeah, unfortunately, at least with Atlantis themselves, there are also other LGBT cruise operators out there. I think, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I hope that in Asia in general, just in the world in general, in the US, in Canada, in many parts of Europe, for example, the being gay and being queer is more socially and culturally acceptable than in some other parts of the world. So in my last podcast, I talked all about me going to Seoul in South Korea. And over there, for example, it's not illegal or bad per se to be gay or to be queer. However, it's a bit, culturally, it's not like the most accepted thing to be doing. There are gay clubs and gay bars. There's some gay events. I went to one of them. So, there are parts of the world where being queer and being gay and be able to have activities or companies that cater to, our community is a little bit harder to come by just because, locally, culturally, it's not as easy to operate those types of things that is in the US, for example, right? So my hope is that in those places where being gay is not so accepted, and in some places it's bad, it's illegal, and you could bad things could happen to you just for being queer and to be on the spectrum and to be yourself is not okay. My wish obviously is that we have a future where that doesn't exist anymore. But that's a tangent if I've ever heard one on this podcast, and I go on a lot of tangents. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, hopefully, at least in Asia, for where this person is, at least in Asia, hopefully, in the future, being gay is more socially acceptable. Therefore, we get more gay establishments and we get more things like gay cruises that are willing to serve, the community in those types of locations. All right. Those are all the gay cruise questions and comments I've got. Just a small little bit. Again, you have any gay questions or gay cruise questions or comments, feel free to leave them on any episode of the podcast on my YouTube channel, Just Joey T. Now, because last week's podcast episode about my adventures or misadventures in Seoul was such a long episode, it was 40 or 45 minutes long. Today, I decided to make this one a little bit shorter than usual so that you get some of your time back. By the way, if you haven't heard that previous episode, go listen to it. I know it's a little bit long. You can probably fast forward, honestly. If you're strapped for time, the best and funniest story is actually at the very end. So we only have maybe 10 minutes or so. Listen to the last 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of that episode from last week, because that's where like the one funny, noteworthy story is. I actually noticed that when I was editing the podcast, because I kind of still have to listen to more or less, I have to skim through the whole thing. So yeah, go ahead and listen to that. But I'll make this one a little bit shorter. And I just want to say I'm loving these soft lights so much. I'm so happy that I got them. Wait on. I said I would get back to why I created the Amazon wish list in the first place, and it wasn't the lights. Okay, I'll try to make this really, really quick. When I was in Seoul, I left my AirPods behind. The full story is in last week's episode. The last 10 minutes, go listen to that. You want the full details. It's my fault for leaving AirPods behind somewhere where that, and I didn't go to pick them back up. Anyways, so they're lost. You know what? To not have lost my headphones in 5 years, it's kind of impressive. At least for me. I don't lose things all the time. I don't tend to lose things. But for something like earbuds, they're so small. The AirPods are so small. I'm actually a little surprised I haven't lost them. Well, until now. I actually decided to do the Amazon wish list to get a replacement set of earbuds, and was thinking, oh, maybe one of my fans might be interested in buying me some new earbuds. So that was the reason that I created. No one has bought me the earbuds yet. I don't expect people to necessarily buy me things, so that's why I'm still so surprised that people bought me these like softbox lights, which I'm so appreciative and thankful for the person that bought me these. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, I don't think they listen to this podcast. But yeah, that's why I created the Amazon wish list. If one of you would like to buy me some earbuds, my Amazon wish list, maybe I'll link my Amazon wish list to the description of the podcast. But if you do decide, and there's no pressure, but like if one of you is generous enough, please let me know who you are so I can like thank you and maybe offer you something in return. But yeah, that's why I created the Amazon wish list, because those AirPods are gone and I actually need a replacement set of earbuds now. So that's the reason why I've got the Amazon wish list. And I guess by extension, that's why I have these fancy, shiny new lights. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next week, bye, y'all.